Hi, my name is Peter Ford in Beirut, Lebanon. My wife and I live and work at the Near East School of Theology, where I teach about Islam and Christian-Muslim relations for local students who will serve as pastors for congregations in the Middle East. Our connection with Al-Amana Center goes back to the 1980s, when we had a ministry in Oman connected with the Protestant church there. We actually lived in the upstairs apartment of the building where AAC is now situated. Back then, Al-Amana was a school for Omani children in a traditional neighborhood of Old Muscat, and I served on its board at that time. More recently, I had the privilege of participating for several years on the board of the current Al-Amana Center. Today, I'd like to share a short reflection on 2 verses from the book of Jonah, chapter 2. We all know the story of Jonah, how he tried to run away from God's command to go and preach to the people of Nineveh. Instead, he boarded a ship heading in the opposite direction. But God caught up with him in a storm, and Jonah got himself thrown overboard. He sank down into the water, and then got swallowed up by a huge fish, which kept him alive for 3 days. Inside the fish, Jonah offered a prayer to God. He first reflected on his situation in the depths of the sea. He realized that he deserved God's judgment of death for disobeying God's command. There, surrounded by water and seaweed, he prayed, "I have been banished from your sight. How shall I look again on your holy temple?" But God's wonderful grace reached out to rescue Jonah from death through the great fish. So Jonah's prayer turns into a response of gratitude. "But I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will make good." In the Old Testament, sacrifices and vows were made in the temple in Jerusalem. We see here that Jonah still had no intention to go on to Nineveh. He planned to return to his own country in order to tell his own people how God saved him. Well, God continued to work patiently with Jonah, impressing on him the fact that being truly thankful means reaching out to others in what we do and say, to demonstrate that God's grace extends to everyone who is ready to receive it. Let us also be mindful of God's patience with us as we travel this important journey of Lent. We, like Jonah, have failed in living the kind of life that God desires of us. Instead, God has bestowed his wonderful grace to us in Christ. And this is not something that we keep for ourselves or our own little group. Like Jonah, we are called to share that grace with others who don't know Christ. True gratitude to God is something that we live out in everyday life as we interact with those around us, our neighbors, those on Facebook, people who seem strange to us, including those who hold very different views from our own. Let us respond to God's work of grace in our lives with sincere thanksgiving by extending that grace to the lives of others.